Hey Deepak, thanks for joining us on the Engineering Manifestos podcast and sharing your journey of building the product and the team at DwellFi.
Hey Raj, thank you for having me on this podcast. Really excited to talk about my perspective and see how it can help the community.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thanks. So maybe we can get started off with a brief introduction about you and your company, obviously, just so that the listeners have the context when you talk in detail about your principles and practices for building at DwellFi.
Awesome. For sure. So DwellFi is all about challenging the status quo in fund administration industry, which is chronically a very manual industry because of the technology was not that advanced in the areas which they require a lot of paper processing, a lot of manual account reconciliation and things like that, and a lot of unstructured data. And what we realized when we started DwellFi was blockchain is an answer to such a solution. And blockchain provides you trustable data. However, how do you bring in unstructured data onto, I say a machine blockchain type situation? And that is where the recent advancement in AI does help. So what now essentially our mission statement is, how do we use AI to bring unstructured data onto the blockchain so that people can make informed and trusted decisions?
Great. Thank you. Thanks for the context on DwellFi. So maybe we can start off with your journey of building DwellFi, right? When you started, obviously from an idea and then to building the uh, product and the team. So I guess what, as a founder and CTO, what do you see as your responsibilities?
For sure, for sure. I think there's a funny joke in at least me and my co-founder and CEO that CTO is the most abused employee in the team. Essentially, on a very small company, maybe when you started, there's only two people and really excited about an idea, then you hire your first engineer, second and third, on and on. And essentially, the first and foremost thing is infosec security. So one of the first thing is, hey, all our are we set from the day one? And then given my background in IT and all the other places, I have spent time learning the different trade which are required to become the CTO of something. Essentially help. So how do you ensure that from day one things are two-factor on all the services, things are single sign-on and bunch of other things. If you set that from day one, you don't have to worry about on the 10th employee that there is a data leak or something. So first and foremost, responsibility of a CTO is when we are starting an idea, how do we follow the best infosec practice from day one? The second thing which comes in is hiring the first founding engineer, you can say, that who need to be, you can think of almost a shadow of a CTO, that the person, that there have to be a huge synergy in there, because as you're hiring more and more, CTO also have to, and being a co-founder also, you have to handle a lot of business related demos and all. So you cannot just imagine just coding, because if you're just doing that, then business, there are other aspects of the business which are going to suffer. So you have to balance it out. So you need to hire literally your replacement on the day one, and you should be comfortable with such a fact. So so we were lucky enough to have such people in our team, and from there the interview process for us has been very simple. Our philosophy is, don't interview somebody to reject, interview to hire. So when we are hiring, and specifically in a very small startup, there is always a constraint of experienced person versus a fresh grad versus the finance of how much you can pay them and all that stuff. So you really need to find the people who believe in the cause, and they're not too much about how much is the bottom line compensation they are being given today and whatnot, right? And are they really into tech? Because when you're building the idea, you are gonna be pivoting maybe in 6 months again. That's just the nature of ideating on something and throwing it away. So finding that persona, finding that, and so I have this formula of how we go about it when you really want to scale. And one of them is, define a problem on a technology stack which you are going to use, and throw that problem out to the person and say, use your friends, family, professors, chat GTP, whatever you want to use, solve the problem. And if you're able to solve it, I really don't care whether you know a binary search tree or not. In some domains it may matter, but at the end of the day, it is like being a professor who is comfortable student graduating with an open book exam. So our philosophy has been is if a person is resourceful enough to solve a problem, they are resourceful enough to solve a problem, any other problem which is unseen of. So that has been our philosophy around how do we hire a person who is, who understands to ask the right question, find the right resources, and then, go about it. And up until now, we have never been wrong about hiring somebody who we have to fire or something like that. So that way we have been very blessed. Then is the establishing the way of working. So for us, we have chosen some tools and technologies, which I will list in a bit. But essentially the idea is how do we keep automation as our first principle? So from day one, how do we automate as much as of the engineering grunt work we can, including status updates, including automation testing. So a lot of the teams are running towards, hey, how can I have a demoable product in 2 weeks or 3 weeks or a month? But to me, that is a wrong approach. Yeah, we still did that. However, the right approach to go about is how do we balance it out in such a way that there is some automation being added as well, so that you are not building a product which is always broken. And that has been the challenge with a lot of team, that you fix a lot of things on Friday, by Monday somebody else broke it, and then you can't demo to a customer and you lost the opportunity, or you're wasting too much time just testing it out. A lot of people are burnt. So that has been our one of the first engineering principle, that automate anything you're doing more than 2 or 3 times. It can be testing a feature, it can be making changes in a particular code branch or whatnot, and anything else in general, right? The second priority has been communication, and our principle has been asynchronous communication. Again, for the same reason, because when you're small, you do not control where you're going to get the talent, because it's a function of, again, amount of dollars you have, amount of time you have, and availability, right? So for us, we have been remote first, so everybody is scattered all over the place, in different time zones, different places. But then, how do we make sure everybody's communicating and not stepping upon each other? So we established asynchronous principle as the first rule, and for that we leverage Slack. So we have a fancy channel where everybody at their local time of 5 p.m. is required to throw in what they have achieved today, what are they going to achieve tomorrow, and any time sinks. Time sync to me as a CTO has been my focus. I really don't care much other than reading what they did today or tomorrow. To me, where are my engineers wasting my time? Because if I see a common pattern again, in few status updates, then maybe that is a problem which I need to pick it up and figure out a good long-term answer for it, because I want to, patch that wastage of time. So that has been the communication side of it, and obviously Jira and Confluence and all that to document and project management and aspects of it. The other key aspect also is we chose less documentation and more automation, specifically around developer tools. So a lot of the early startups, when they start, they will have these gigantic frameworks built out, but 20, 25 instructions how to set up a developer environment or how to do something else, right? What we are proud of, at least in DwellFi, is our developers are productive on day one. So you are onboard them in the morning. By evening, they can commit a code in a branch if they know what they're doing. So their development environment is never their constraint. So we have chosen all the right technologies and have built all the right setup and all the other nuances necessary to make that happen. So that's why we are 5x, 10x performant team. Last year, when this ChatGPT moment happened, we also did one more thing which typically startups don't do. We took 2 weeks of time off. We said we are not doing anything else. We are going to learn AI, at least how to consume AI from engineering perspective. And that required a lot of habit change, because we as engineers, oh yeah, let me go to Stacktrace, let me go to Google. Like, no, there is something better. Let's try to embed that into our development flow. So that way, again, most of the grunt work around how you're writing the code, how you're documenting, all that is reduced. And that led to faster code commits, faster feature development, because now AI is also helping you with like basic tests, which is amazing if you think about it. A lot of people are surprised, but for us, it's like awesome. How else we can use it? So that allowed us to be to stay current. Employees and team members were really happy, because they are learning something which, at least in their own peer groups, are probably not going to learn maybe for another 3-4 years. So this goes to my fourth thing, right? Doesn't matter whether you're a small team or big, the continuous learning at a week schedule is very important. So we have a culture of on Monday that we don't only do retrospective of the sprint, but we also give everybody some space to say, what have you learned the last week, which you want to share to other team members. And that just have a snowball effect in terms of learnings, and then gives everybody some confidence and, hey, my time was spent in a way which now can help somebody else. So these are certain ways and principles in how we have been growing and what we have been doing at DwellFi.
Great. Thank you. Thanks, Deepak. That was definitely pretty insightful in terms of how you've gone about picking the tools and technologies and the development practices. I am assuming that you haven't come to the current stage in your platform, product, company in a linear fashion, right? So I'm sure you've done a couple of pivots, iterations. So if you can share some learnings and experiences from that for the listeners, that would be valuable.
For sure. And you are absolutely right in saying how many times we have pivoted the product itself and how many times we have rewritten the whole code base because there was some other better technology and we were not afraid of throwing it away. What we have done, and in the short term, we did doubted ourselves that what we are doing, but the dividend did pay. So as a really small company, also if there is a technology advancement which is promising, slice some piece of time in there. And being a CTO, if you are really hands-on, you can buy it yourself or get the top star engineer from your team and then give the time to do the POC. And don't hesitate if you feel like that's the right thing to do for the team, just jump over it. In a few weeks, you will know if you're wrong. Just stick with how you have been. But that is a much better way of iterating over things than just building it for 6 months or 10 months and then have so much legacy that now you can't migrate to something promising because you're too busy making somebody happy. So that's on the technology pivoting, and so be comfortable with change. So essentially, hey, there is this new framework which is out there, which may promise a boost or scale or stability or safety. Try it out. Have some time within, have some, maybe once a month, have a weekend which is for hacking only, just to figuring it out whether all your current problems by what you know as a team, as a technology is solvable or not, right? A good example is somebody was asking, hey, what is the best technology you can use in your team? Like, the best technology you can use in a team is what your team knows. If your team is built of all the Java engineers, not that Java is a bad language, but that's all you can use. You can't suddenly bring in Python or JavaScript or something else, because that is the wrong way to go about it. So you start with Java, and eventually, if you feel Java was the wrong choice, then you can migrate as your team knowledge, experience, thought process changes. For that's what happened to us. We started with Python, Django, and all that stuff. None of them are bad. That's what we knew. And that's what we are comfortable with running the fastest. But as things evolved, we realized mistakes. Some of the things we changed to TypeScripts and a bunch of other things because that was the talent we were able to hire. So a choice of technology is always a function of what is available at hand and what is the target market where you're hiring, what's available there, right? So sometimes you're lucky to find the combination, sometimes you're not. So you have to be really conscious of choosing technologies, not because they are fancy and Google is adopting or Facebook has just published. It's what you can hire or have already hired can do it. Because without that, you'll just fail. It doesn't matter whether technology is good or not, right? Implementation comes from who knows what to do with it, right? So that's very key.
In terms of the product planning aspect and prioritization of the different requests coming in from from your CEO, sales, business development, customers themselves, your conversations, and your team internally as well, right? So what is your framework for prioritizing what needs to get built?
So one of the funny thing about the business side, doesn't matter big or a small team or a company, is they want everything yesterday and they want a fully featured aeroplane. They just don't want something which flies. And the very next month they may say, you know what, we want a ship now. We were wrong. That plane was the thing which was going to sell, right? So as an engineering leader, you have to make sure the that you filter out the excitement from a customer feedback or an opportunity which may fall. See what happens on Monday. You are excited. You are hungry for revenue. You're hungry for adoption by some customer. The business team is all about that. And then when they say, hey, this is definitely going to sell, let's put everything there. And what you realize is by Friday that thing fell through, and then you'll waste a lot of time just POCing something. So asking the right questions to the business team and holding them accountable, because engineering bandwidth doesn't come free. So the majority of the engineering bandwidth should only be contributed to what is concrete. That means something is planned, that hey, there are customers who have signed the contract, focus on delivering them. And then maybe 20 or 30% of your bandwidth should be reserved for ad hoc hackathons, or ad hoc demos, which need to be done just to make sure the pipeline building and pipeline is happening the way it need to happen. So that's very crucial. Focusing too much on what is planned will also destroy the sales pipeline and sales motivation. And focusing too much on sales feedback will destroy your deliverables. You will not be able to deliver what you have already committed. So there is a fine line there where you have to keep reminding the CEO and the business partners that this is opportunity, this is guaranteed. Let's differentiate the bandwidth and accordingly do what is necessary. And then, as I said, right, everybody wants a fully featured aeroplane. How do you break it down to a point? What is the MVP? To a point where what is this one line, or 1 line or 2 lines of the pain point which the customer really want to pay for, because they may want all the other nuances around it, right? For example, very simple example, right? Let's say you are building a product which allows login and then do something behind it, right? Now, depending upon how many customers you interview, some will say, oh, does it integrate with Okta? Does it have single sign-on? Does it have this? Does it have that? You can do all that for sure. But if you start doing that, you will never have time to build what is behind login. So idea is start small, do what you are comfortable with, and only have customers which are okay with that type of login. So that, because login is login at the end of the day. And then yes, all the other integrations can be added, but is that's why they're buying your product, or what is behind the login? So differentiating that what is the pain point and are you solving that pain point for the customer is very crucial, and at what cost?
Sure, sure. No, absolutely. Yeah, I think that's definitely helpful to understand your approach for prioritizing the requirements coming from the business and customers. So I guess moving on in terms of the other two pieces on organizing the team, building and organizing the team, you talked about your hiring process and approach, and a little bit on the execution side of things, like how you make and operate things, things like coding standards, code reviews, architectural decisions, scaling patterns, things like that, right? Obviously, as a startup, uh, as an early stage startup in particular, you cannot go overboard on documenting things, too many processes, and so forth. But if you recall, during our time at Data Domain, even when we had grown to a larger size, there was this notion of just enough process, right? Where you want to have it just enough for the type of problem that you're solving. So maybe if you can share a little bit of your framework and experience in terms of how you make and operate things, which is basically building, and it's a SaaS service that you're providing. So how you operate that service as well, like things like your approach for monitoring and alerting, uh, you know, capacity planning, things like that. So just the whole gamut of how you make and operate things at DwellFi. If you can share some of your framework and approaches, that'll be helpful.
For sure, for sure. Right? So, and there are different phases of the company where a different mindset is required. So, for example, when you are in like pre-concept stage, don't worry about scale. Don't worry about the best of the best security. Just get it done. Does the primary use case works? If it works, rest can be figured it out. Like as you're gonna go through POCs and validations and whatnot. So focus on that. That should be the focus of the team. And when you have customer onboarded, then you need to worry about regressions. That to me is the biggest thing, which is if you have a customer running on your product, you cannot have a downtime, because that have a whole ripple effect around customer escalating it, some engineers making more mistakes, and on and on and on, right? Because everybody's busy, everything is planned out. Now suddenly if 2 days are gone solving an escalation, everything falls apart. So once you have, there is a different mindset required before you have a customer, to the point where you're just doing a POC. And once you have a customer, where now it is all about not breaking what is being built, making sure there is no regression, what is running in production. And when that is done, The next piece is basically the security, because you have real customer, you are really dealing with real data. It's no longer, randomly generated noise and stuff. Then comes scale. So half of the time, the engineering team invests a lot of time worrying about this artificial scale, which you argue about and you waste a lot of time, which is not necessary. Think about what would be your scale in next 6 months. Oh, let's build a platform for 1 million users. Sure. And today you don't even have one. Why are you worried about 1 million? And if by some magic you are going to have a million user, that's okay. Let the system crash. We'll see what happens, right? Idea is, if you have 100 today, dream for 10,000 or 1,000. Don't build for anything bigger than that in terms of design choices and all that, because to me, given the current constraints and clarity, that is over engineering, and all that is going to do is just delay everything else, because you may not even reach that scale, because you may run out of money and all the other things which are required to make sure the business is continuing, right? So don't worry too much about the scale. Only worry about maybe 6 months into the future that, hey, can my product support whatever business we are bringing into this, and then up to next 6 months. And there is this other joke, which is CTO is most proud when their product dies or crashes in production. Like why? Why, right? It's because we met our goal that we have as a business. We managed to kill the product. Great. Let's now fix whatever broke, and then fix it, to the next 6 months or next 10 months, because you cannot build a perfect product. Will never crash. Never. There's always a scale which you killed. Even the chat GTPs of the world did die and were like insanely bad in last year, if you guys remember. So the idea is, don't try to perfect it too much. Build it for what you know. Don't worry about unknowns. There's always unknowns. Just optimize for what you know. So that is very important from from operational logistics and scaling standpoint. Then comes this whole SRE side of it, which is, hey, who's gonna be watching it? So depending upon how many time zones your team is in. So we had like India and US. So essentially, we divided 12 hours of circulations. And the primary monitoring mechanism for us was Slack. So everything was converted into email notifications. They were being sent to the channel. And then from there, there's a whole process around, based on the severity, things become Jira, and then somebody triages it, and on and on. So we didn't went into like pager duties of the world, and because that's just again adding more complexity to what you already have. Start with simple email notification, email groups, because that's what your team is. It's that small. Don't waste money in like getting fancy subscription, fancy app monitoring systems, because that is just adding more complexity, more skills which you have to learn as your scaling team, because may not be the right choice. You may even decide to change your business or product, then all that investment goes to waste. So idea is, do bare minimum to solve a problem. If you need monitoring, email is a good solution. Just stick with it for as long as you can, and then evolve into something more fancy, including PagerDuty or anything else as necessary.
Cool. Thank you. Thanks, Deepak. I think in terms of the approaches that you have taken for scaling things as the business grows, I think that's a good way of planning for the future, especially and in early stages of building the team and the product. Yeah, definitely. Thank you. Thanks for sharing that. So I guess uh, you know, uh, one other part of it that we'd be interested in hearing and understanding is, based on your experiences so far, what are the things that you think you wish you had done differently, right? Obviously, this hindsight is 2020, but are there things that you may have done differently in terms of how you went about doing your product planning? Obviously, building the team, I think you did mention that you haven't so far made any incorrect choices, but certainly I'm sure there are learnings in terms of your experience, both in terms of the product planning side of things, building and organizing the team, and also executing, right, in terms of meeting the business needs. So any learnings and experiences from that you think you would be or you would have done differently if you had the opportunity to go back in time?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, and reflections is always easy because you have lived through it. But then when you're doing that, sometimes it's like a blame game. You're blaming yourself for all the wrong things, but then you forget all the reasons why that wrong, whatever you're considering wrong as choice today has happened, right? So given this type of disclaimers, and you have to keep in mind because you can't keep blaming yourself for things which has happened, right? In life of a startup, depending upon your financial status and stuff, you may need to make choices around how desperate you are to get your first customer. And depending on if you are, then don't think too much, talk to a few people and iterate. If you have time and money and you feel like the requirements are not very clear, do not build anything. Talk to as many customers as you can, then find few people who are really screaming, yeah, this is my pain, to the point that they have tears in their eye, and those are the customers you want to really grab them, and then have a constant meeting with them every week, like a design partner, because then they are involved in a product, and the likelihood of converting them into a paid customer is much higher because it has been built to somebody's requirement. And then last is, in startups, typically when you get these early customers, they have very specific requirements: do this, do that, but not. And as founders and advisors, many, oh, don't become the service company. And to me, there's nothing wrong in becoming the service company because you don't have a business today. First become the service company for one customer, and then find more customers who wants the same service which you built for one. But there is a balance to it. Don't go too much, but start with there is a balance, and like time up until you should be doing this. There's nothing bad about it. So these are certain things, if we have, would avoid some of the pivots we had and some of the really painful pivots we had. And I believe we could have reduced the time it took us to reach where we are.
Sure. Thank you. Thanks, Deepak, for sharing, your, experiences with the listeners. I'm sure it's going to be invaluable as some of them embark on their own journey of, building things as they go along. Thank you. Thanks again for your time and your lessons learned. Thank you.
Thank you, Raj. Thank you, everyone.